On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the human side of leadership. Subjects such as burnout, subjects such as being real with your team. You're real with your teammates when we've been taught that that's not something that you do. We're going to learn today the value of being real with the people that you lead and the tremendous impact that has.
At Initiative One, we're igniting a leadership revolution by helping organizations eliminate the drama, improve decision-making, and win as a team. Join Dr. Fred Johnson on the Leadership Initiative podcast as we uncover insights to maximize your impact and transform your life.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Fred Johnson. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Leadership Initiative podcast. I am really excited about introducing to you my special guest, Coach Abbey Sutherland. Abby is the head women's volleyball coach at the University of Wisconsin in Green Bay. You're going to learn a lot more about her in the next 20 minutes. She is an amazing, amazing coach. But even more than that, she is an amazing leader and a terrific person. She is one of the most influential leaders in the athletic department because of her, the way she carries herself. And we're going to be talking about some of the key lessons that she has learned in her very successful career as a women's volleyball coach. Abby, it's awesome to have you with us. I'm so glad that you could join us.
I'm passionate about leadership, so I'm really excited to chat today. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, Abby, we're going to get right to it. We talk about that so many people have a misperception about what leadership is. They think that if you're a leader, you have to have all your act together. You got to know everything. You don't make mistakes. If you do make mistakes, you don't admit mistakes. It's the old fake it till you make it thing. And in our conversations, the many conversations that we've had over the years, you don't buy into that. That's not your deal when it comes to leadership. And so one of the first questions that I want to ask you is, we've all had moments in our lives or seasons in our lives that we were wondering what good can come out of this episode. What possible good can come out of this trial, this difficulty that I'm going through? And yet, in how we lean in, we look back months or even years later and say, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me as a person, as a leader. Talk to us about one of those episodes in your life that when you were going through it, you wish you weren't going through it, but now you wouldn't take $1 million not to have gone through it and learned what you did. Share with our audience the value of adversity, and it's helped you in your success.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, lots come to mind, but the one that is most recent, I would say, and most impactful was a stage of going through burnout, dealing with my mom's death and recovering from that. So my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2013. She was in her early 50s, and we went through over a decade of pain going through that. And I did my best to cope, but I definitely poured myself into my work, and that was how I was numbing. And so even though I went to therapy and I always was a learner and trying to become better, I wasn't exactly grieving or processing everything. And it wasn't until my mom passed away that it was a year after that I realized I was really at rock bottom. I was not as motivated to go to work. I felt completely burned out. I was fantasizing about taking other jobs.
What it could be on the other side of the fence, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, and naming it burnout eventually really helped me, and it helped me forgive myself a little bit. But I mean, I was so rock bottom with my physical health as well. And I hit a really low depression spiral about 15 months ago, last January, so January of 2024. And I decided I had to do something about it. So I contacted a therapist, started therapy. I got in touch with a functional medicine specialist and started an 8-week program, which was really 8 weeks to start into 6 months. And I had to take a step away from work. I was still doing my job, but I was feeling guilty while trying to take care of myself. And I just chose to take care of myself. And I think the team supported me. They didn't know as much as to what I was going through. I alluded that to them, and I think it's important to be vulnerable, but I don't think they quite understood. That caused some issues with my staff, which I've never had issues with staff before, but the staff is now gone. And I actually had conversations with you about that, where turnover is sometimes good. And I can now see that that was the best thing to happen for me, was just to start fresh and get a staff in that I felt supported me. But I took care of myself and I ate better. I followed a physical exercise regimen. I did therapy and I took a step back from work. And now I want to be at work. And here's the other thing that's crazy is we just had a player diagnosed with leukemia about 2 weeks ago. And I've been a mess the past 2.5 weeks. But I know I can do this. And I had a friend tell me, who has a lot of coaching friends, and she said, Abby, I know you're going to be mad at me for saying this, but if there's one person I would pick to lead someone through this situation, I would pick you. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make me mad at you. I mean, I don't really want to do this. I don't want to lead a team through this tragedy, and I don't want to see our player go through this. But I'm ready to do it. And there's no way I would have been able to tackle this or take this on. And everything I went through has made me ready to support Kendall. And I can do it. I know I can do it. But I also know now, like I just talked to you before this podcast, I am working really hard to get ready for vacation, which sounds silly, but I know how important that time is for me to be passionate and ready when I come back, because the team needs me to do that. So, yeah, the cancer thing, I'm ready for it now because I put in the work.
Well, there's so many things that are going through my mind as you're talking. First of all, we've spent some time together, and not one sentence in the last 5 minutes have you talked about your team's performance. You haven't talked about records. You haven't talked about wins and losses. You haven't talked about how your program has skyrocketed, even as it has. And it is so against what people have been taught about leadership. You were burned out because you were giving to everybody except yourself. And eventually you reached the point you had nothing. You were on fumes. And if you have a coach that's on fumes, it's only a matter of time before you're going to have a team that's on fumes. And you've talked about, in the last few minutes, you've talked about the personal side of your life. And we've been taught that, wait a second, you leave the personal side and you're getting us really uncomfortable, Coach, because you're talking about your mother's passing, you're talking about the serious illness of one of your teammates, you're talking about depression. That's very intentional for you. What? Because it wasn't always like that. What shift happened that you began to put as much emphasis, if not more emphasis, upon the personal side of your life as a leader? And what was the impact upon you in your program when you started doing that?
Yeah, I think vulnerability is important, and I did a lot of research, years ago with the Brené Brown books, and it's really good research. But now it's almost a buzzword, which bothers me.
Yeah.
And so I'm careful about the phrases I use because I never want to be that buzzword person because we were doing vulnerability before people talked about it this
Yeah.
much. But I think it's about connecting and explaining stories. So like I sat our team down. We had to practice after we found out about Kendall. We had our last week of practice, and it just didn't feel right to go into day 3 of practice and
Not talk about
not
it.
talk about it.
Yeah.
So I brought him in before practice and I said, guys, I'm mad too. I don't really want to be here. I don't want to be at practice, and that's not me. But I'm like, I don't know what to say to Kendall. I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing, and I don't want to do this. Like that doesn't mean I'm not going to do this for you. It just means that one of our players has cancer, and so I just poured my heart out to him because it's been really hard. And the week after, we had individual meetings, and several of our players mentioned things that I said or our assistant coaches said when they were vulnerable about the situation that resonated with them for them to be able to share their feelings. And that's when I know that's what I have to keep doing.
So I know you've allowed me the privilege of spending a lot of time around the young ladies on your program. And there is incredible amount of trust among them. The energy when they're in a room. I mean, I love when they come to our think tanks because they just accelerate the energy in the entire big room. It wasn't always like that, was it? When you first came to the program,
Yeah.
was the trust high among the teams between the coaches and the players? Was it effective? What shift did you make that becomes a lesson for the rest of us?
So many things come to mind. Most recently, we had an alumni match. And so we did a social afterwards, and there were some players who played for the previous coach. And, people will always have coaching stories. I understand that. But what they were saying, I was like, I never, ever want my players to say that when they come back to an alumni social about them not being allowed to take certain classes because they want to become doctors and nurses, but that wasn't allowed because that would conflict with practice time. And just a top-down leadership, like basically yelling, pitting people against each other in the same position when what we focus on is them helping each other to get better. And so I had to really make a shift, and it took a while for the team to even understand. And they were even craving the old leadership a little bit. Where in volleyball, it used to be, not anymore, coaches don't give a coach on one, where if someone doesn't go for a ball, you pull them aside and for minutes you just slam balls at them. And it's traumatic and horrible. And at the beginning of my career, I did it because my boss did, and I thought that's what you did. But early in my career at Green Bay, I was just like, the way I lead, this does not match with how I lead. And we got to figure out how to be creative to get people to go for balls without embarrassing them. And I took it away. And we had a player, our captain, pull me aside. I'll never forget it. We were at South Dakota State. I'll remember where we were standing. And she said, can we bring back coach on ones? And I was like, in my head thinking, no. But I just said, okay, well, we'll think about what makes sense. And you have to train them that that's not how they should be led.
So what was, I mean, you've had amazing success. The last 2 years, you've taken your team to the conference finals, and the other schools in the program really dread playing you all. If there were one or two key pivots that, in your thinking, in your attitude, in how you approach things, one or two small pivots, but yet they had a major tipping point in your impact, what would it be?
Probably as a head coach trying to sustain season. I recently started having sessions with a guy who's trying to start a business in burnout and coaching, which, I mean, we desperately need that profession. And so it's been fun to chat with him about where I've been at in my career. And when you're coaching throughout season, I can get into a 10 out of 10 dark place. I still remember that in Green Bay. And I don't know if it's because I'm over 40 now and like that's what happens naturally, but I don't worry as much. I don't sweat the small stuff. But the big saying that I really like, and I mentor someone and I told it to him and it's helped him as a new head coach. It's not about you. It's not about you. Like, just think about it being about the team. And he said that mantra helped him because it's just, you're eventually reminding yourself that you're being selfish, almost in a way where you're making it all about yourself when you're caught in this darkness. And so I think that really helps me snap out of it and helps me be there for our players. And then another thing is just relentless communication. They are not going to understand it the first time. And number two, they're trying. They're trying really hard. So don't like hate on your players, which I never did, but that's just what leaders sometimes do. They go to complaining about their people.
What you're describing is what we call the shift from being a perfectionist leader to a leader that's committed to excellence. And they're not the same, even though people think they are. When you're a perfectionist leader, you shame your players or your teammates, excuse me, when they make a mistake, hoping that they'll feel so bad about it that they'll get better because they don't want to feel that pain again. And yet we know that shame doesn't work. Shame only makes it worse. The shame, the next time you made the mistake and you got yelled at it, the next time you're in that situation, you're not even going to make an effort because you don't want to be yelled at. You're describing a shift, a commitment to excellence, which is, look, I want you to fail forward. And I don't want mediocrity, but the best learning and best growth is not in success. It's the learning after we've blown it, after we've made a mistake. And yet you had to make a really important pivot to be able to start coaching like that. Because I remember when we first met several years ago, if you were having a losing record, you were down in the dumps.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, if you were winning, oh my gosh. And so you had to become comfortable with those times that things weren't going well. And I saw you begin to move from being the teller to the mentor and the teacher and I saw that your team began to be more aggressive. They were not afraid to make mistakes. And what blew me away when I would come to your matches, when they made a mistake, you couldn't tell on their faces and in their body language if they had just had an incredible comeback in a rally, or if they had just blown it. You couldn't tell because they were always their body language and their energy and their enthusiasm and their support of each other was off the charts. I'll never forget that. What would you say about that lesson to a leader out there who's trying to rally his or her teammates?
Yeah. Well, number one, utilize your resources because we have a mental performance coach and he helps reinforce the messaging in a confidential way. Like, I don't know who sees our mental performance coach. And like, he's found a way to also say the same messaging. So if there's other people who you can get one follower who says the same messaging to utilize your resources, because I think he's helped tremendously. Kendall, I asked her at our end of season meeting this fall, I asked her, what was your biggest takeaway from working with Cody? And she said, I'm the person that's getting in the way of where I want to go. And I was like, oh my gosh, Cody's worth every penny, because if every single one of our players is saying that, then they're not blaming each other. They're not blaming the teammates. They're not hating on the coaches.
And they're not hating on themselves either. They're evaluating themselves
Yes.
and saying, okay, what can I do to get better? And it doesn't mean I get better as a person. It means how can I get better as a steward of the gifts that I've been given? That's a whole different thing.
Yep. Yeah. Focus on breath work. Be mindful. We practice stuff like that all the time.
I, as we wrap this up, there's one of the things that so many things I love about you, and there's no buts coming. You're always you're a lifelong learner, and I know that right now you're involved in a women's leadership group of some really stellar women leaders. Why do you do that?
It fuels me. I mean, we just had a session. Well, first of all, your building is beautiful. And we get to sit in this space. And like, I think because all the women are so high level, we were willing to be vulnerable early. Like there were tears in the first session. And that's okay. Like, people would look at that as a bad thing, but I felt immediately connected with these women. And, Tracy does a great job of leading us and teaching us. But we tell each other stories and we ask for help. And now we have this community to problem solve and talk about what our current struggles are. Like I talked about what I've been currently going through with the group on Friday, and they lifted me up and they gave me so much help.
Isn't it amazing that the best leaders are the ones who are not hesitant to say, you all, I'm struggling. I need help. I don't know how to handle this particular situation. We've been taught that's weakness. And yet it opens the door for people to pour into us with solutions that we could have never had by ourselves because we were too close to it.
Yep. And in fact, I drove to Wisconsin Dells with my husband after the session last week, and we finally were able to name it. He works in finance. He is very burned out. He's a superstar in his company, but he can't do it much longer. And I was just feeling so good after last Friday. I'm like, Ryan, you should check like when the next cohort starts because I think you really, really need it.
You're so refreshing to me. First, your friendship, it's deep. We've become dear friends. We've been there for each other in tough. Both of our parents, one of our parents died from long-term Alzheimer's and all of the stuff that goes with that. I too suffer from depression, and we've been able to be real with each other. And I want to remind you that if you want to grow your impact, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to do it by yourself. You can say, I need help. I'm struggling. And yet that opens up the avenue for all kinds of people to come into your life and help you to do what you couldn't do for yourself. That's leadership. We call that self-leadership. Abby, I want to thank you. Again, our special guest is Abbey Sutherland. She's the head women's volleyball coach at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, one of the most successful coaches in the Horizon Conference. And she was in the SEC years earlier. She has a lot of experience, and it is so good to have you. Thank you for being with us. I want to say to you, thank you for joining us today on the Leadership Initiative. I want to give you a couple calls to action. We have our second annual Initiative One Leadership Conference coming up in about 2 weeks. We're almost sold out for that thing. And we'd love for you to grab one of the remaining seats. If you can come and join us, you can go to our web page, initiative1.com, to learn more about it and to register. The other is we have think tanks every month that are attended by hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people around the country to grab nuggets to help them be better as people and better as leaders. sign up for our next think tank. Again, you can go to initiative1.com to do that. It is so good to have you. Once again, thank you for joining us on the Leadership Initiative. Have a great day.